This is Gateway City Sports.
It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No!
Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
He doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down, Michael for three. Yes! She is gone!
I can't believe what I just saw!
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! You believe in miracles? Yes!
You may fire when ready.
What?
Cubs and Cardinals fans, it's Thursday, July 22nd. And this is the Team of Rivals podcast, proud members of the Gateway City Sports Network, where you can find great podcast and blog content. And I tell you what, folks, the thing I was most struck by over the last 4 days, besides just how terrible both teams really are. Yes, the games were close, but come on, let's admit it. They were close because both teams suck. What I was most struck by was how in a one-run game in the fifth inning tonight, how quiet it seemed, at least on the broadcast I was watching at Busch Stadium. Seemed really, really quiet for what I assume was a full stadium. I know they're not in a pennant race, but still, these are your heated rivals, and just didn't seem like the St. Louis Cardinals fans were into the game. We'll talk about that and more, and the impending teardown of the Cubs, because we know it's coming. It's only a matter of time. Trade season started tonight. Nelson Cruz going to the Tampa Bay Rays, but we'll get into all of that in a second. You can follow us online at teamofrivalspodcast.com. We're on Instagram and Facebook at Team of Rivals Podcast, and we're on Twitter at Team of Rivals Pod. And for those of you watching live, hit the like and subscribe button, and be sure to ring that bell on YouTube so that you receive notifications anytime we post new content. Joining me tonight, as always, somehow, despite his title, perpetual, permanent, occasional guest host and former state champion and always a state champion in our hearts, Elliott Dewey, and number 48, the 2020 edition of the Top Cards on Twitter, Mr. Ron Nuttall. Gentlemen, how you feeling tonight?
There we go.
That about sums it up.
Better. Yeah. So, shit. I lost train of thought. That's what happens when I forget to unmute myself. Pete, big question for you.
Is that what happens when you forget to unmute yourself, or when Elliott has more sound going on tonight than he's ever had?
Than usual. Yeah.
Oh my God. And
you want to bring them in on the show?
It was
might
crazy
as well.
Because when I pull up Rendezvous, there should be three microphones. My laptop, the one that's built into the camera, and then this one, the good one that's supposed to kill everything else that's surrounding.
It never.
But I have a list of like 12. So it's always a crapshoot to pick out which one's actually the correct one that's going to give the best sound and kill out everything else that's surrounding.
Okay, I didn't know it was that button on your board. Did you do anything with it tonight?
The big green one?
Yeah. You didn't, did you?
Yeah, it's red.
How long has it been red?
It's been red since after this is Gateway City Sports.
Okay. Just had to ask because it took me a minute to realize mine wasn't on. So
of course it did.
Do that little chop up thing. That's cool.
Hey, look, who needs producers, engineers, professional sound quality, a show map?
I had somebody had asked me why is your intro music so long? It should be like 15 seconds. And here's the thing, since we don't have like a horde of people behind the scenes here, I'm spending that time.
Ron needs time.
I'm spending that time to share this thing out wherever I can so people know that we're actually on. And so a big reason why I've had, we made the decision, let's let Pete lead this thing in at the beginning and everything. And it gives me time to actually do something because, well, there's nothing like just trying that cold start right when you hit when you turn your camera on. It kind of sucks. So this is you think we would be more polished at doing this? I mean, it's gotten easier over the years, but we even had some problems tonight just with seeing each other. It's just ridiculous, man. I don't know how people do this shit.
That's the charm of this show, Ron, is that it's not polished.
It's not.
I just don't understand why we haven't been able to monetize this thing. I mean, I would think the podcast networks would be beating down our door.
You know how hard it is I mean, people that, and there's a lot of people that want to do this, a lot of people that do, and a lot of people that give them up real quick. A popular show, you and I think Elliott's caught you before too, Rebel Force Radio, biggest podcast in its fan genre, right? By far. I think saw something on Instagram. They have like 16, 17 million downloads, right? They've been doing it for over a decade. Those guys still have their day jobs. So
yep.
That tells you anything right there. I mean, unless you're Joe Rogan or Adam Carolla or somebody of that ilk, it's don't plan on making the second career. Of course, unless your spouse is a doctor and you don't want to work anymore, okay, go for it. But I mean, it's a hard thing to do. We do this because we love this game, even though it's really pissed us off this year. And at times it's been hard to find motivation to do it. So as we go into tonight, I want to talk about this series, right? It's an important one for the Cardinals, and I don't know what it meant for the Cubs, honestly, other than just bragging rights or something, this series, because the dismantling's coming. How many and who is still probably a question. Do you get what you can for guys now, or would you rather go for a pick at the end of the year or a compensation pick? Are you getting more there than you would in a trade right now? And it's probably a difficult thing, but we'll find out in the next 9 days. My son, after the game that the Cardinals blew in this series, has vowed he's not going to watch baseball for 2 weeks. He's not going to look at scores. He's not going to look at standings. He's going to avoid social media. And I've already pulled the bullshit card on him because there's no way he's going to do that. I don't even think I could do that for 2 weeks, unless I was just.
Well, he's going to play MLB this show. Come on,
I think he did say he's going to hit that hard, but I don't know how you can ignore reality. But anyway, it's what it is. This series was an important one for the Cardinals. If they were going to try to get back into anything, get at least to the 500 mark, and it really could have determined what direction they take here at the deadline. So this was a big one for them. Should have taken all four, but coulda, woulda, shoulda. The Cubs took advantage of the wildness in one inning of this series, and to Ian Happ's credit, I'm like, there's no way this guy's going to get a hit on top of all this other bullshit that's happened.
Yeah, Mr. 180.
He did anyway, and you just should have known it's coming. Look, when you have a guy on the mound, I know I'm kind of jumping right to it, the game that the Cardinals lost, but that's what typical fans do, like us. Not talking about you guys, but Cardinal fans lately will go to the negative in the series instead of mentioning right now that they won 3 out of 4. When you got a guy that's just wild and struggling clearly, even for a hitter like Happ or Baez, these wild swingers, when a guy's just trying to throw a strike, I mean, it's like a blood in the water, right? I mean, because that's all he's trying to do is throw a strike so he can stop getting behind in the count. And when you know a pitcher's struggling like that, he's that much more vulnerable. And I think that advantage nearly always goes to the hitter when a guy's out there wild, and especially when the bases, the bases are packed and he's already walked a few guys. You could feel it. You could feel it in your gut. You knew it was going to come. And, I was like, it was either going to be Baez or somebody like Happ, somebody who has a propensity to strike out a lot and miss pitches. You just knew it was going to happen with somebody like that. I hated to see Happ up in that game. I would rather seen Bryant still in the game.
I was honestly, I wasn't watching the game. I turned it off because I figured it was over, and woke up the next morning and saw what had happened.
Same here.
Kind of like you, Ron. And was stunned. I wasn't stunned by the fact that they came back, because I mean, as we've discussed in our thread this week, just give the St. Louis bullpen a chance to work. But I was stunned that it was Ian Happ who actually drove in the go-ahead run, because that's just not his MO anymore. Not
the guy you would want up when the game's on the line, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you even offer him arbitration this year. If I'm Jed Hoyer, I'd designate him.
Yeah.
I just put him out on the market and let anybody pick him up.
Somebody will pick him up.
I'm not looking for anything. I'm not looking to get anything back for him. He's wasted effort. He's taken up a roster spot now for 3 years, and you really haven't gotten much in return. I'd be happy to let him go.
See, now,
and if he blows up somewhere else, great.
See, now I've been saying the same thing about Tyler O'Neill for a couple of years now, right? And the patience has appeared to maybe pay off a little bit. And I'm talking about the organization's patience, certainly not mine. But I think that might be turning the corner. So I might be eating my words on that one, but I'd be glad to. The other one would be Harrison Bader. Man, what a polarizing player to a fan base. And I think I said it on here last week. And it's just the mannerisms, the way he plays, the way he carries himself, like he carries himself at a much higher level than what he plays. And I think that's the rub a lot of fans get. And we're not enamored by the cute Goldilocks hair. I'm not. Maybe there's some cougar moms out there that are. I'm not. It just doesn't do anything. I don't care about that kind of stuff. You know how personal habits, what they dress in between games, or when they go on a road trip and they take pictures of all the players walking in their fancy suits and everything. Man, that's just not my cup of tea. I don't give a shit about that. I don't. Player interviews on MLB Network are the most boring thing I think I've ever listened to. There might be a handful of players that are interesting. And I'd rather hear from managers, by the way, because they usually have a lot more to say. Players, maybe it's because they're muzzled a little bit and they really can't say much. But player interviews and things, I'm not interested in what these guys do outside of the game. I'm just not. Is that wrong? Am I a dick for being that way? Just entertain me, like Gladiator movie. Are you entertained? Just throw a bat at me, Paul DeYoung. I really don't care what you do outside of work. It's your personal life. It's none of my business. I don't know where the hell I'm going with this, but
I don't think you're wrong at all. I know I made a comment the last time that these two games played, or these two teams played, or maybe it was game one. Anyway, I made a comment in Twitter and I said, "Damn, this hurts to say, but Adam Wainwright's a great interview. Like he clearly has a broadcast career ahead of him if he wants it, because he's engaging when he's on the mic. He's funny. He's not boring, and he seems like he's got a thought in his head. But ultimately, Ron, I think that's what it is, and this is." It is to demean jocks, because some of them just are stupid. And look, these are not that education is the end all and be all, but most of these guys have a high school education and that's it. Yeah. Right. So they're not particularly smart to begin with. And for a lot of them, they're not encouraged to be smart. So you get these guys on an MLB Network interview and they don't have a thought in their head. And so, of course, you're not interested in it because they don't have anything interesting to say. There's nothing interesting going on up there. And the guys who are interesting are smarter than to go on the radio and make an ass of themselves by saying the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So they politely decline.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd go as far as saying, I don't think this is what you meant. If you don't have a college education, you're not smart, because clearly there's some pretty smart players. But I get your point. Like if it's a jock, I'm just getting grades good enough to stay eligible to play. That's who you're referring to, not
Which it's pretty clear that's who Harrison Bader is, right?
I don't know.
Come on. All he's about is his look. Have you ever heard anything about the great philanthropic efforts that Harrison Bader's doing, about the second degree that he's going back to get? No, what you hear them talk about is how impressed he is with his own swag and that he thinks that he has the best hair in baseball.
The optics appear to be that way. But, as soon as you say something about these guys.
It's not just the optics. There are things that he said. I caught it on the broadcast the other day. Somebody was interviewing him and they asked him, who's got the best swag in baseball? And he said, I do. Clearly, and I have the best hair too.
That's not surprising.
Somebody who responds with that, the intellectual depth is about the same as a Dixie cup.
Okay, he's starting to become the most hated Cardinal for me. He's getting right up there with Yachty and Jim Edmonds when he was a Cardinal. And that was kind of why I texted the other night. Two things. He struck out, or no, that was a foul ball, and Harrison Bader's a douche.
There's a lot of Cardinal fans that actually share that sentiment. Now, I actually
Which one? That DeYoung's hit was a foul ball, or that Bader's a douche?
Bader's a douche. I've never actually, I don't recall hearing an actual interview with him or really hearing him speak much. So But as soon as you go say something about a guy like that, you find out that they go to the children's hospital like unannounced. They just stop by on their way back or forth to the ballpark. You don't know about it, and you find it out maybe years later, and you're like, I was kind of mean to that guy. I didn't know that he'd spent some time doing something positive. So I don't want to be completely unfair, but yeah, he rubs a lot of fans the wrong way. But that's not where we were going with this. We're going like to well, first we were on the series. I know I bounced us around here. This is why I'm not the main voice on the show anymore, because I tended to do this. But, just talking about Ian Happ, I think is where this went off the rails. We've got some very similar players that I had counted out years ago, and it looks like there's a chance I could be wrong. Tyler O'Neill definitely looks better this year. He's laying off some of the pitches that he tended to struggle with. And he's taken the ball to right field a lot more often. Harrison Bader has been hitting really good since he came back off the IL. But listen, I'm a wait and see with him, because some of these guys tend to be hot when they get back, and it's just a matter of weeks before they kind of fall back into their normal habits. So we'll see what happens with him. But so far, he's looked really good. And some Cardinal fans that have never done it before are calling to see what he can do in the leadoff spot, because it's been a little bit of a weak area for them all year. It's been... right now it's Dylan Carlson, and they tried Tommy Edman there, but his on-base percentage was just terrible, and his OPS was terrible. And so I don't think they really have that spot in the order locked down with a favorite right now. Bader's got the speed, and when he puts the ground on the ball, you saw it in this series early on. When he puts the ball on the ground, he forces the infield to react. I mean, did you fit? I just wish he would do that more often, and I would like to see him, if he made more consistent contact in that leadoff spot, at least a shot. Hell, it can't hurt right now. But yeah, so
what you wish for.
And it kind of reminds me, like those two guys right now kind of remind me of last year, where you had two very consistent guys in Happ and Hayward, but look how they both this year have just been terrible. I mean, not even real flashes of the adjustments that they made last year. Just back to Happ swinging and striking out a lot, and Hayward grounds the second. I mean, they're
Although
back
Hayward's
to
been
it.
a little bit. Hayward's actually been hot the last week and a half or 2 weeks. Happ just looks completely lost up there at the plate. He looks like
He has all season.
Not only that he doesn't have a plan, but that he doesn't even have an idea of what's going on up there. I mean, and it's two different things, right? It's one thing to go up to the plate with a plan and to not be able to execute it because you're in a funk or the pitchers, are outwitting you, but he doesn't have a plan, and he doesn't seem to know how to adjust. And look, I mean, that was why they sent him down 2 years ago, was because he wasn't adjusting back. And it seems that, I don't know. I mean, I hate to say that he's gotten a little bit of Harrison Bader in him. But maybe he's gotten too big for his britches. His profile has expanded exponentially because of the Compound podcast and the coffee and his partnership with Obvious Shirts. And maybe he's gotten so focused on being some kind of icon that he's forgotten that the reason that he's getting paid and that people pay any attention to him at all is because they think is a good baseball player. And maybe he ought to shift his focus back to that, because he certainly hasn't shown it at any point.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And that's actually where my mind had went, was to his podcast, The Compound, and the morale coffee and everything else. It's like, you don't see other players engage in social media as much as he does. So maybe, I mean, that could be it, that his focus is just taken off baseball. And with that, and I don't know if you've noticed this either, Pete, but it seems like Rizzo has been unfocused for the first time in a long time. It just seems, I mean, he's been in this funk that, I mean, yeah, he struggled last year, but this feels different. I don't know if you've noticed this at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at his last two at bats last night. He took the gloves off. He put the gloves back on. Yeah, I wonder if the uncertainty of, the possibility that he's not going to be in Chicago after having thrived here for the last almost decade, has thrown him off his game a little bit, and he's not able to focus because for the first time in his major league career, he's not comfortable.
And I think through the first part of the year too, everybody kind of assumed that he was going to be safe, and now his name's getting thrown out there that maybe he would be a good fit to go back to Boston, and because they need that left-handed at bat and a first baseman, and so that makes sense. Go back to the team that had drafted you in the first place.
And I wonder if part of the reason why he's not is because Jed hasn't gone to him, because he's a leader on the team and because he's a veteran and he deserves that kind of respect, and said, hey, look, Anthony, we're going to be honest with you. We are exploring trades. We can't say that anything's going to happen, but we're listening on everybody. And so you may hear your name out there. And, rather than take it in stride and appreciate Jed taking the time, it's actually gotten to him. And Anthony Rizzo didn't seem like somebody that kind of thing would affect him, but
yeah, they were talking about this on the Cardinals broadcast tonight. Brad Thompson was former player, really kind of talking about how most players will say in public that they're not paying attention to it, or they're focusing on the next game or today's game, and he even said it's really hard to not notice or not pay attention. That's your fate. I mean, it's your employer. Imagine in our everyday life where you could be, there was a time every year where they talked about, we either keep you where you're at or we move you in your daily employment. Like how much would you be able to, you wouldn't be able to focus like normal if you knew that was coming. And so it's got to be next to impossible, you would think, for these players to not look. I mean, maybe some don't. You have some freaks out there who maybe they, I don't know if, I can't think of one off the top of my head. Maybe some guys just don't care. Like, I don't imagine like a guy like Puig would be fat. Well, he probably would. Ego-driven guys probably would. But I just don't know how it's possible to not look in on it and not be thinking about it all the time. I mean, every day you're driving, like Anthony Rizzo, it's a good example. He's been driving to that park now, consistently since 2014? Mm-hmm. Like, how do you not drive back to your home stadium every day and not think, man, could this be the last day I'm driving up here, last day I'm walking in the Cubs clubhouse as an active player in a Cubs jersey? I mean, the guy's got to be thinking about that all the time, especially with the history and the run they've had there. I mean, imagine looking across, these guys looking at each other on the infield, Brian at third or left field or right field, wherever the hell he's playing next game, but these guys looking at each other, they're all on the field together. And every game, you got to be thinking, this could be the last game. We're all on the field in the same jerseys. It could be a damn, 20-year Cubs World Championship reunion before we actually have these jerseys back on, standing on the same field. And so I don't know how you block it out. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't envy these guys for sure.
Especially when you made Chicago your home and you've resolved to make an impact in Chicago, and you've become really the face of the franchise. Mm-hmm. He's I don't know that he's ever been the best player on the team, but I think if you asked anybody who's been a Cubs fan since 2013, I think is when he first got called up.
Yeah, they didn't have to say he's the heart of the team, no doubt, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be tough when you've poured everything into this city. And you're right, your time may be ending. Mm-hmm.
I think about it every day.
You would hope.
Is this going to be the day they let me go at work? Is this going to be the day?
And as a fan, you would hope, okay, well, maybe they're able to swing a deal where it improves the team and they're able to re-sign him in the offseason and bring him back. But let's be honest, he's 32 years old. How much longer is he gonna continue to be able to put up the consistent numbers that he's been able to for a while? He has constant back issues. I mean, he seems to lose games every year for several weeks when his back flares up. It may be that the Cubs do make the decision that, hey, we're gonna find ourselves our next first baseman, and this is the end of the road.
Yeah. Is he going to be a compensation pick player though? If they let him walk, they offer him a QO. Maybe they won't, but if they offer, I imagine they would. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think
they might be better off in his case to get the compensation pick for him, I would think.
Yeah, because I don't know that I think they're going to have to be blown away to trade him, because there's more to it. There's more to trading Anthony Rizzo than just not having him in the lineup anymore, right? There's going to be a public relations hit, probably more than any other player. Even though everybody loves Javi Baez, I think that it's going to sting more when Rizzo is not the man over at first base.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I think Rizzo is the least likely to be dealt of the names that we're hearing about, and then probably Baez. But I think if both of them survive through the deadline, if they're unable to get an extension, they're both going to get QOs. There's no way that the Cubs just let them walk away.
Yeah, they'll go for the pick at least, and I think that a lot of it, they're going to have to weigh what can they get for these guys at this point. I don't know what's wrong with Bryant right now. I heard it was a hamstring maybe that was aggravated, so that's probably not ideal timing. So these guys will have to weigh, what are we getting in return? Are we better off getting a compensation pick at this point? And some teams elect to do that. Usually it's teams that are still in contention and have a chance and haven't really, telegraphed that, we're going into a rebuild. We know this is, we're going to have to tear parts of this down. And that's why I think, like, to your point, Pete, I think you guys were even saying a year ago that Rizzo, if there's anybody extended, it's likely to be Rizzo. He's the one they would want to keep around, I think, just for morale, if nothing else, right? So I think everybody's been kind of primed and prepped for Bryant and Baez to probably be gone, and I think it's going to take your fans a little longer to get used to the idea of Anthony Rizzo being traded or just not being there one day. You show up at the ballpark. Imagine you bought a ticket for August 3rd, and you're like, I hope my favorite players are still there. How many jerseys have those three names on the back of them? And there's a chance that none of them are there August 1st.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Hey, I'll be there Sunday, so
well, we'll see what happens.
Probably one of the last chances. Yeah, for sure.
Is for me, would you?
He might not be there. Like, well,
I'll scream it from the rooftop because that's where I'll be.
Ooh, rooftop.
Well, you made a point there on that I don't want to get lost. If you did have to come down and make a decision, I think that it's an easier decision to extend Rizzo than it is Baez, because the Cubs are going to have a whole lot of cap space after this year. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they trade these guys, they have a lot of expiring contracts. And so there's going to be a lot of money freed up. The shortstop market this offseason is much, much deeper than the first baseman market. And so if it ultimately came down to that, I think you put all your eggs in the Rizzo basket, because you're much more likely to be able to sign a shortstop to replace Baez than you are to be able to find somebody to replace Rizzo right off the bat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. There are options out there that are available. They're going to be available really soon. They're actually available now. A few of them are. And that was a rumor that was floating around. I shared this with Elliott. It was a tweet, and it's probably a troll. It could have been a troll account. Nobody knows, but it was retweeted. We retweeted seveul times that the Yankees were in talks for Trevor Story, which wouldn't be too surprising. Why not have all the rich get richer, right?
This didn't come from Katy Perry's booty hole. Isn't that one of the Twitter accounts that had a big scoop?
I'm pretty sure I would have remembered that. I'm sure I would have remembered that name. No, that's not where it came from. Now, switching gears over to my team just for a bit here as we approach. Now, they're a 500 team at this point. I think part of the goal was let's stay afloat until we can get close to the trade deadline to see what we need, and even closer to getting a few pitchers back. So Miles Michaelis, the first one that looks like he could be back earlier than Flaherty, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen with him. He looks like he's going to be joining the Memphis team here pretty soon for a rehab assignment. Jack Flaherty will be, I think, very soon be throwing to live hitters. So it looks like he could be back within the next, call it 2 to 4 weeks as well. So that's what I think they're crossing their fingers, hoping happens. It's not really a trade, but if you think about it, the team they've played with for more than a month now, it would almost be like making one. If you could get one of those two guys back to add to your rotation, it would definitely be a plus. So, man, I just don't know. You ask me right now, are they going to make any significant moves that impact this roster? I have no idea this year, guys. We've seen John Mozeliak surprise us a handful of times, but I think for the most part, like last year, there was no help that came at the deadline. Nothing. A year before that, it was the same story. absolutely nothing to help the team. So it's been 2 years in a row at a trade deadline that we've known about where no significant additions were. Oh, I'm sorry. Tony Cingrani was traded to the Cardinals in 2019. He never even put a uniform on. So that's the most notable one over the last couple of years that's actually happened. So I can't tell you. I think it would be a surprise to me if they're able to deal for anybody of any significance. And all I want to see is an innings eater. Although the starting pitching has looked much better, the bullpen is my concern at this point. So I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see a bullpen arm added. Those guys have been used a lot. And I heard Joel Sherman on Bernie Miklas's podcast out of St. Louis. He's on radio, but he does it in podcast form too. They put it out. Joel Sherman, the Cardinals bullpen walk rate is sky high. The next closest team, I can't even remember who I think it was the Padres. But the Cardinals are outpacing everybody in terms of bullpen walks. I don't think at this point in the season, guys, that gets any better. And we saw an example of it.
I saw that what you were talking about, Ron. I think it's the Cardinals are like 75, and the Padres who are next are 51.
I don't remember what the exact numbers were, but it was like they're walking about 20% of the batters they face, which is just, and I think, an insane number. I might have that wrong, but I think it was in the neighborhood of 20%. That's like 1 out of 5 guys are walking, and I don't know how the hell it's amazing that they're 500 right now. I don't know how to explain this one. So the bullpen is going to be more of a concern, obviously.
And Ron, I would caution you on not getting too excited about how well the pitching has looked recently, because they have been facing the Cubs for the last 4 days. So,
well, they faced the Giants before that. Now the Giants are one team there. We're talking about the deadline. I've been seeing the Giants pop up in a lot of rumors. It's MLBTradeRumors.com. So rumors are rumors, but I've seen that the Giants, they could be a scary team if they added a couple significant parts. Trevor Story was one of the names that they were mentioning checking in on. So Giants add another Trevor Story, but as rumored, looking at him as an outfielder, because they have Brandon Crawford at short, who's an excellent shortstop. I don't know Trevor's history of ever playing in the outfield, but that's what the rumor had speculated, that they might be looking at him for an center field position. Boy, I don't know how well that ever works. I know Craig Biggio made a transition at one point from second base to the outfield. I know that Skip Schumacher for the Cardinals did it in reverse. He was an outfielder that was made into a pretty decent second baseman. Colton Wong certainly didn't make the transition very well from second base to center field. I think there's a famous meme that the Cubs have put out there. His body in the shape of an L landing on his face in center field. I think it was at Wrigley Field, actually.
It was.
And pretty sure that game was a loss, too. So I don't.
Yes, it was.
That's why I question some rumors like that. But yeah, I think they're going to be pretty active. Look, when you've got LA and San Diego behind you, we know how damn good they are, and you're still holding on to first place. I mean, you're damn right they're going to be active. I think they're going to try to get something in there that keeps anything to keep that lead, or at least keep themselves in that, at least in that first, if not second, if everything goes to hell, wild card spot.
So Ron, let me ask you. You had mentioned, that the goal kind of right now is to weather the storm of injuries and get back over 500, and then see where you stand. You're what, 7 games back, I think it is right now, in third place, maybe, in the division.
It's close.
6.5 back in the wild card, and that's 6.5 back of the second wild card. I mean,
a lot has to go right.
What's the goal here?
A lot has to go right.
A whole lot has to go your way.
You're probably at this point, once you start talking about wild card and everything. So I don't know if there's been an outcome to Milwaukee tonight, but they're 7 games back right now. We're not quite in August yet. We're in late July. I know in 2011, the Cardinals were in double digits out of the wild card in 2011, and they got healthy, and then they got hot at the right time. You can't bank on anything like that happening. I'm not crazy, but if they can stay reasonably close, pick up a game or two here and there, but they're going to have to win a whole hell of a lot more than Milwaukee, right? If you did the math of the remaining games, like Milwaukee's going to have to play 500. The Cardinals are going to have to play like 700 baseball in order to catch them. It's a lot to ask. So you look at the wild card, and I don't know what the West looks like. The West is probably going to take. They're going to take two.
They have the top 2 spots right now.
Yeah, I mean,
they're 10 game right now. You guys are 10 games back of the Dodgers and 6.5 back of the Padres.
Yeah, so I mean, you're probably I think they have more control over their division. They have a better chance of catching the Brewers or whoever the leader is in the division than they do worrying about the wild cards that are out of their division, because I don't know how many games they have left against any of these guys, but definitely have more against the Brewers, definitely have more against the Reds. And that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to be competitive with winning teams, and they're going to have to kick the shit out of losing teams. And that's what they haven't been doing this year.
And think about it. It's simply the presence of Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt that has your team in this, right? Because our teams are not that far off. I think you guys are 2 games ahead of the Cubs. The presence of those 2 at your corners dictates that you have to go for it, that you can't tear it down.
I don't know how you acquire a guy like Arenado in late January and then become even a half-ass seller at the deadline. I just don't know how that's possible.
But I mean, think about that. Without those 2, you would of course be tearing things.
I think
you would absolutely be advocating to tear this thing down and start it over.
Yeah, because you would be
not start it over, but
you would have no answers. You would have so many holes that you would really have no choice but to do that. And so, that would be the reality that we would be facing. I don't know if you guys doesn't sound like you watched the games. Maybe you did, Elliott. Last night's game was an interesting one because Nolan Arenado had 2 plays that if that guy wasn't at third base, the Cardinals don't win that game. That play at home plate, while it didn't look that spectacular when it just happened, when you watched the replays of it and saw how quickly he made the decision and how well he threw the ball to home, you're like, holy shit, man. A lot of guys don't make that play.
That's a play. That's the only way you make that is that you know what you're going to do before the play happens, right? Yeah. You always hear players talk about, I'm thinking about what my action is if I get hit the ball. He knew exactly what he was going to do before that pitch was thrown. He knew that if he got the ball in that general area, he was going home. And there was no second thought about it because you saw it. He didn't hesitate at all. It was an incredible play.
Yeah. And the one later in the game where he kind of, went down to get it, that was a great play too. It was a strong throw, but man, that play at home was one of the best I've seen this year. Any other person we had on the roster that's at third base, that's not Nolan Arenado, and that's a run. It's going to be a run.
Wait, are you saying that Matt Carpenter couldn't make that play?
Carpenter's not going to make that play. No. Carpenter's not going to make that play, and likely the guy, even if he tried to go get the out at first, he's not going to get that either. So, I would hate to think where we would be without a few of these players on the roster right now. And we feel it, and then this team has significant holes. And we feel it when Tyler O'Neill is out of the lineup, believe it or not. He was a player I was done with at the end of last year. He wasn't playing in the short playoff series. He wasn't even starting at that point. Neither was Bader. So, and these guys now, when they're out of the lineup, are like, oh shit, who do we have in the outfield now? And it's never a pretty picture. So that's how you could say that's how bad things have gotten if you're a pessimist, and like I can be at points in time. But yeah, so
really?
Yeah, well, a little bit. I'm not terrible. I'm not terrible.
Maybe a little. You did say that you were going to go shit talk some 8-year-olds on Fortnite.
Oh yeah. No, I didn't say I was going to. I was referencing my son who was. And you don't know the level of shit talk that a kid does when the doors close and they think a parent's nowhere around. It's pretty eye-opening. He gets into his game though.
Oh God, see, you're right. That was Elliott who was going to go shit talk the 8-year-olds. But as we said before, I honestly couldn't, if you had taken the names off of our text chat this week, there's no way you would have been able to tell who was saying what, because it could have been talking about either team.
Mm-hmm.
You could have been talking about either team's frustrations.
Yep.
You could have been talking about Kyle Hendricks owning the Cardinals, and it could have come from either team. So yeah, these last 4 days have been fun.
It really is perplexing, his mastery over the Cardinals. All right, I mean, you know that sometimes a young pitcher, a manager won't let him go the third time through the lineup because they just don't have a history of facing the hitters for the third time, and for whatever reason something goes wrong. There's guys that if they get too many looks, they're vulnerable. The Cardinals, I think, could face him 200 times. They could face him 200 times in a row and still be perplexed with Kyle Hendricks for some reason. I don't understand. This guy is not I get it because
It's incredible what happens when you throw strikes. Isn't it? Isn't it something?
And look, I'm not standing up there at the plate, but compared to other shit that I see out there in Major League Baseball, this stuff looks hittable, and nobody can hit it for the St. Louis for some reason. I mean, you don't see overwhelming pitches that you're like, wow, I want to see the replay of that. It's like very routine, and it's mind-boggling. But he's a, death and taxes, and Kyle Hendricks is going to hold the Cardinals to under 2 runs. That's pretty much the givens these days.
And this is not putting him at all in that echelon, but he's the closest thing I've seen to Greg Maddux since Maddux retired.
Yeah.
That guy who does not overwhelm you with this stuff, but is way smarter than you and is able to disguise all of his pitches and make you look silly.
Yeah. Yep. And he's got, I wouldn't say he's got Maddux type control, because I don't know that we've seen many that have his type of control, but he has really good control. And he'll let you make contact, but he'll ensure that the kind of contact you make isn't going to do a whole lot of damage. I mean, he really has to make a mistake, to get tattooed. At least in the times I've seen him pitch against the Cardinals, he makes an uncanny mistake once in a while, and it might be an accidental home run hit off of him. But that's about it.
Well, and it was pretty close. It was pretty close with Arenado.
Well,
yeah,
I was just going to say, right?
And Arenado thought he had it. Arenado did too.
Everybody thought that Arenado hit that one out, and it came up like 15, 20 feet short of the fence. I mean, that tells you exactly what kind of weak contact he's able to induce, even when he makes a mistake.
Yeah.
And you're right, Ron. It's and we've seen this, and this is kind of the thing for him. It takes him a couple of months to warm up and to get himself locked in. So you can get to him early in the year.
Yeah.
He gives up a lot of home runs.
There's our offensive equivalent to Kyle Hendricks right there.
Yep. But he also, when he gives up home runs, there's usually not guys on base.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he's most effective, is he's able to limit the damage even when he doesn't have his best stuff.
Yep. Those kind of pitchers rarely do they ever let a game get away from them. Rarely do you ever see guys like that getting pulled, before the 4th, 5th inning. And so, yep, he's a nemesis for St. Louis for sure. But at least they came out. They flexed some muscle in this series at times, and bullpen showed me my worst nightmare. And that would have been, I wasn't awake for that either, Pete, but I saw Twitter the next morning because I saw the score. I'm like, holy shit, how's this possible? What happened? And when I just scrolled Twitter maybe for 12 seconds. I'm like, shit, I'm just going to have to watch. It was nothing but rage. And then, so I had to watch the half of that inning to figure out what took place. And I didn't even watch the condensed version. I watched the full, and it was brutal. I mean, it was brutal. That is not a fun way to win.
I'm not one to tell you guys. Actually, I am one to tell you guys how to fan. If I was a Cardinals fan, there was no way I could get excited about this team, seeing how they played against the Cubs, and knowing that bullpen is just gasoline on a fire, man. I mean, that bullpen's just terrible. And they
have figured it out the last 3 years, because they had so much of what you would say was a potential surplus of starters in the minor league system. They always had a name or somebody they could bring up, and it seemed to work for them for years. And this year it's just everything has hit a wall. And you don't, just when you think like so many guys cannot be playing this bad all at the same time, this is the worst I've seen it. Where several people in the offense up and down their lineup, all bad at the same time. I've just never seen anything like it. June is the worst type of baseball I've seen since the 90s with St. Louis. I mean, it was that awful. The Cardinals played so bad, I went into the military, so I couldn't watch them anymore in the mid-90s. And then they got better when I was in. And, I just haven't seen that bad of baseball for a really, really long time. And so it was a hard thing to process. Like, you think sometimes these guys have a will to not let shit slide too much, like a Chris Carpenter style of personality, or a John Lackey, or somebody like that can kind of like, I'm not letting this other team win this game. We've lost 3 in a row. It's not happening tonight. And the Cardinals had nobody that could answer that. I mean, the closest thing they had was probably Adam Wainwright that could give them a chance to stop a losing streak. But man, just to see everybody not clicking all at the same time is pretty goddamn brutal. And I'm hoping they can pull themselves out of it. We'll see. To your point, though, they were playing a Cubs team that didn't look good in this series for the most part. Baez looked completely lost. I know he had a pretty good. I think he had a couple good hits tonight. But watching him in this series, defense and offense, he looks like he is just. I don't know if he's done
they're checked out, man. They are
like it.
They are all thinking, am I going to be here tomorrow? Am I going to be on this? Am I getting on a plane tonight? Am I headed out of town?
Yeah.
Am I going to New York? Where,
I agree that you got to wonder, and we talked about it a little while ago. How much is of a factor is that playing? I think a bigger one than what most people will think. Definitely a bigger one than what they're going to tell you.
Well, and unsurprising when you look at the way that this, I mean, in retrospect, when you look at the way that this team handled adversity after 2016, anytime that things got a little dicey, that things weren't working exactly to their plan, it kind of collapsed. Actually, I shouldn't say 2016. They were right there in 17, but after 2017, this team has not been able to handle adversity. They've not been able to step up when the chips were down.
Yeah.
So Ron, I mean, we know everybody who's going for the Cubs, but you've identified, and I think that everybody has, it's starting pitching is probably where we're going to see starting pitching. Well, pitching in general is where we're going to see the Cards move.
Yeah.
So who do you think is most likely to be dangled as trade bait? Who is not on the roster August 1st?
I know that there are a lot of fans that would lose their mind over this name, but I've got to wonder, is Matthew Liberatore a piece of the Randy Arozarena trade? If I'm sure that when teams call, that's probably one of the names that they're checking in on. And if it takes, to capitalize on that trade for Arozarena, which it doesn't look as bad these days versus when it did in the playoffs last year when he was just playing out of his mind. I wouldn't be too shocked if he's part of a deal. If they make a deal for anybody of any significance, I'm suspicious that he might be part of it. Even though they're pitching at the major league level like that, they're going to need that. I just wonder if that's not a part of it, because I don't think that his numbers in the minor leagues are what people think they are. And I heard this today about just something like his fastball. Like, he doesn't fool anybody. He's not fooling anybody in Memphis. What do you think is going to happen at the major league level? If you can't hide a fastball or anything else from a AAA hitter, what do you think is going to happen in the major league level? They're gonna eat him alive. So he's not ready yet, for one. I'm thinking that might be a part. If the name's something that even gets near a name like a Max Scherzer or a Joey Gallo, anything like that, I think he's going to be part of that deal. Because I don't think anybody right now, Pete, on their major league roster has that much appeal or can. And who are you going to deal? Who are you going to deal from the major league roster is going to get you anything at this point? That's not named Nolan Arenado or Goldschmidt. Nothing. So it's going to have to come from who you think your top level of the minor league system, and his name's right there. So I don't think there could be somebody as a throw-in maybe from the major league roster, but it's certainly not going to. I know everybody wants me to say Carpenter. That's not going to be it. Although he has played better, it's not going to be Matt Carpenter, and I don't know who else they would. I mean, they're not. I don't know that they're going to depart with any bullpen arms either. I don't think they can afford to. So they don't have a ton to deal from. So where do you look to? And you look at some of their top level guys in the minor leagues, at least who they think are top level in the minor leagues. I think that's where it's coming from, which may prevent them from doing anything, Pete.
I heard DeYoung's name kind of tossed around a little bit. Do you think he'd be maybe somebody that they'd be willing to deal?
If they're getting a shortstop, because right now they don't have an everyday. I mean, Edmundo Sosa did a nice job filling in while he was out. But I don't think they see him as a future cornerstone, a future lockdown for that position. I don't think the Cardinals see him that way. So unless they're dealing for a shortstop they think they can secure long term, I don't know that he's going to. I'm not gonna shed a tear over Paul DeYoung being dealt. I think he's had a nice little run, and he's He's played a little bit better since the break, but to me, I think he's not that expendable right now because they don't have an immediate answer in the system that can play that position every day. So I think it's unlikely. I don't know. You can play Tommy Edman there. That's where he played in the minor leagues, and Sosa. But we've seen what happens when Edman's exposed every day, right? He's not having a great offensive year, so I don't know if that's likely. Can we have Nolan at shortstop too? Maybe we can just play the whole left side.
I'm sure he can do it.
Maybe
just put him in the hole and see how much ground he can cover.
Yeah. And you put that statue Matt Carpenter over there at third, so anything just dead pulled down the line, that's your only responsibility, big boy. Just right here. Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. And I told you earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if you're gonna see everybody on Twitter, Mo's standing pat, he's sitting on his hands. Those are the two phrases everybody will use. I wouldn't be surprised though if nothing's done. Except
honestly,
nameless bullpen.
I agree with you, Ron. Unless you're pulling the trigger on something huge, something that we're not hearing right now, I don't know how you
unless that
mortgage the future.
Unless that Rockies GM got a job somewhere else, I don't think Mo's going to be able to fleece anybody anytime soon.
Nope, I don't. Look, Liberatore may not be fooling anybody right now, but do you really mortgage the future for what is probably a 1, maybe 2 year window? I don't know that. Personally, I'd be pretty fired up if the Cubs pulled something like that.
Yeah, I don't.
It's just me.
Yeah, I'd like to see them take more risks every so often, but then you look at some of and you can't say that when they've dealt some of these guys, it was like a huge risk move at the time. Like dealing a Rosarena to Tampa Bay, nobody saw that at the time. Like, oh my God, it's a huge risk. He was tabbed as an all-star. He was the next Oscar Tavares. Like he wasn't at that. I don't think anybody thought he was at that level. It turned out that he had an unbelievable late season and then playoff run, and everybody's like, oh shit, we just traded away an all-star, which we did, by the way, in Adolis Garcia. He's wearing a Texas uniform last week, and that's or a couple weeks ago. I don't know, whenever the All-Star break was. But I think they might be a little bit gun-shy from making some of those deals. So, yeah, I think unless it's something huge, I just don't expect to see anything except another Wade LeBlanc type signing or deal. Thank God for Wade LeBlanc. Didn't see that.
You sound very excited about that prospect.
Didn't see that one coming.
I got to tell you, as sad as it is, I, for one, am kind of excited to see what the future holds for the Cubs. And so I'm looking forward to the trade deadline simply because it's going to open up playing time for these young guys and we can really see what they may or may not be able to contribute at the major league level. Which is something we haven't had for a while.
Yeah. And I've definitely felt like that before too. Like pick a direction so we know what to expect. Right. And you want that in everyday life too. It's like, okay, if this is going to happen, I'm tired of sitting in the doctor's office waiting room. I just want the results. So let's just get it over with, right?
Yeah, I feel like since pretty much 2019, we've been seeing the same story over and over again. I mean, there's been some variations here and there, but I mean, it's been the inconsistent offense, and that's kind of been the big thing. We've seen our starting pitching, we've seen our bullpen do well on and off these last couple of years, and it's just if we can't score runs, it's feast or famine. The guys are hitting home runs, we're winning games. The guys aren't hitting home runs, we're...
Excellent point.
He was bragging about
the fuck.
He was bragging about he was bragging about his internet speed too before we went live.
Yeah, I know. And it popped up while I was talking connection problems. I'm like, you got to be shitting me.
Nope. All right. So as we wrap this up, most likely to not be a Cub this time next week. Who you got?
Craig Kimbrell is probably number one. And then after that, it's going to be the Sheriff.
That's Andrew Chafin, Ron.
Yep.
In case you didn't know.
Yep, I know. It's the reliever. That's the one that's been. Those two have been, and I would pick those two first. There's so many teams trying to figure out their bullpen. Some of them even trying to figure out a closer situation. Those are immediate answers.
And I think possibly Tapera. That's probably another one too.
Not as familiar with that one.
I'll tell you, I think the most likely to not be on the team this time next week is definitely Chafin. I think it's going to be easier to put together a deal for him. I think that the market for Kimbrel is going to be so hot that one's going to go right up to the deadline.
Yeah, I agree.
And the Cubs are going to get a haul because
I hope so.
You know, the Giants are going to be in, the Yankees are going to be in. I think we're probably going to even see some teams that we aren't expecting.
Is Chapman down right now?
He has not been nearly as effective.
Okay.
Since they've enforced the sticky stuff. So.
He's been getting hit pretty good since then.
I'd be surprised if because they have Chapman and because of what he's capable of, I don't think that the Yankees are going to be willing to offer up when they already have an answer there potentially. I just don't see them as offering up what some other team will that doesn't have any answer. So yeah, I think Kimbrel's going to get you the biggest haul, and he's the sure thing to be dealt, the sure player that's going to be dealt. Question marks for me on the other ones. Do you go for the compensation pick because it's just nothing's looking appetizing enough? There's got to be one of the three's got to go though.
Bryant's gone. Bryant's as good as gone. I don't see Hoyer hanging on to him.
I would agree, and everybody's known that was coming.
Yeah, there's no reason to hang on to Chris Bryant because you're going to get, given his versatility and everything, and given how that, assuming he's healthy, he can affect the lineup, and the fact that you're not trading for a third baseman. That is his versatility. But if you have a hole in the outfield that you're looking to fill, you're still considering Chris Bryant. You're not out of that market, and so I think that puts more teams in, and you're going to get a much better return than you would for a second round compensation pick. That's essentially a lottery ticket. You're going to be able to get more than that for Chris Bryant. I don't know that you'll be able to get more than that for Javi Baez or for Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah, I agree. I've already answered the St. Louis question.
Too much liability with the other two.
I've already answered the St. Louis question. Like anybody on that active roster right now is going to be dealt, and I doubt it. Not the 26-man roster.
Nope.
It's going to come
right because they're not pieces that anybody wants. The pieces that anybody wants aren't going anywhere.
Yep.
Everybody else is either too old or too bad, or both. In the case of Matt Carpenter,
that saga's coming to an end. So we won't have
bullshit. He's getting an extension at the end of the year for another year.
Let's
he
bring
is
it back
coming.
one more time.
I don't think
coming.
So. No, I really don't. I'm banking on that one not happening. I think they've heard enough shit and have been kicking themselves in the ass. They have been for 2 years going, man, he would have been gone 2 years ago, and we're paying him like $36 million over the last 2 years. They hate that. There's no way they're giving it any more money. Thank you. You did everything we asked you to do. You didn't complain about it or whine. You had probably 5 or 6 really nice years. But best of luck. That's what's going to happen with Matt Carpenter. And Cardinals Nation's not going to have its whipping boy anymore. Then Harrison Bader is going to get the full brunt of all the blame once Matt Carpenter is not on the roster anymore.
He can handle it. Look at that hair.
Yeah. All right. Let's get out of here.
Well, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your friends to subscribe. We're available on Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to check out the other Gateway City Sports Network podcasts, including the Derek King Sports Show, 2 for 3 with Moose Michaels, Turn and 2 with Dylan Dinger and Tito Rivera, Yacker Jacks, XFL STL, and In the Cards with A-Train Arlington Lane. It is really fun to say that. A-Train Arlington Lane.
Nice name, isn't it?
Anyway, you can send us an email at the show at teamarivalspodcast.com, and you can find Elliott on Twitter at
TOR_Elliott.
And you can find Ron raging at
TOR_Ron75.
Gentlemen, it's been fun watching the Cardinals and the Cubs play to their level of mediocrity this week. hats off to you, Ron, for your team taking 3 or 4. I'm sure it's a huge moral victory for you. And for all you Cardinals fans who are watching us, this time next week, we can celebrate the complete or impending overhaul of the Cubs roster. On behalf of Ron and Elliott, hope you guys enjoyed the show this week. We'll see you all next week.
Bye-bye, everyone.